Friends, first of all, I welcome you all to my 7th video on the chapter Surface Chemistry. That is the last video of the chapter. In 6th video, we discussed something about electrical properties of colloids, coagulation of colloids, at the same time that is electrophoresis. These are the discussions that we had in the 6th video. Now in the today's video, we'll see the remaining aspects of the chapter Surface Chemistry. And that we'll see now first of all coagulation of lyophilic colloids. You know the phenomenon of coagulation of colloids. As we said, the phenomenon of settling of colloidal particles from colloidal solution, and that is what we call it as coagulation. As you know that the lyophobic colloids can be easily coagulated, but not the lyophilic colloids. Is it not? Lyophobic colloids can be easily coagulated. Just by adding small amount of electrolytes, you can bring about coagulation of lyophobic colloids. But lyophilic colloids cannot be easily coagulated because lyophilic colloids are relatively more stable compared to the lyophobic colloids. As you studied, in the case of lyophilic colloids, there is a strong interaction between dispersive phase and dispersion medium. In the case of lyophilic colloids, there is a strong interaction between dispersive phase and dispersion medium. Because of that, the colloidal particles in lyophilic colloids are extensively hydrated. Because of that, the colloidal particles in lyophilic colloids are extensively hydrated. That means the dispersive phase particles are surrounded by dispersion medium molecules. That results in a sheath of dispersion medium around the dispersive phase particles. Look at this. Because of that extensive hydration, because of that extensive hydration, if I say this is a dispersive phase particle, this dispersive phase particle is surrounded by dispersion medium molecules. Because of that strong interaction between dispersive phase and dispersion medium, the dispersive phase particles will be surrounded by a sheath of dispersion medium. Just observe a layer of dispersion medium around the dispersive phase particles. So this particular sheath of dispersion medium is going to protect a sheath of dispersion medium around the dispersive phase particle is going to protect dispersive phase particles from coagulation. So because of that, lyophilic colloids are more stable. At the same time, lyophilic colloids cannot be easily coagulated. And of course, the high stability of lyophilic colloids, is due to the two reasons. One reason is presence of charges on the dispersive phase particles. That is usual property, is it not? The dispersive phase particles in lyophilic colloids will be characterized by charges. Presence of charges on the colloidal particles is one reason for the stability of colloids. At the same time, second reason is there is extensive hydration. Extensive hydration of colloidal particles due to the strong interaction between dispersive phase and dispersion medium in lyophilic colloids. That is, dispersive phase particles in lyophilic colloids are extensively hydrated. These are the two reasons for the high stability of lyophilic colloids. Because of that, lyophilic colloids cannot be easily coagulated. If you want to bring about coagulation of lyophilic colloids, you have to remove these two factors. If you want to bring about coagulation of lyophilic colloids, you have to remove these two factors. That is, the presence of charges on the dispersive phase particles can be removed by adding electrolytes. By adding electrolytes, you can bring about removal of charges over the colloidal particles, because electrolytes are characterized by cations as well as anions. The ions present in the electrolytes are going to neutralize charges over the dispersive phase particles. Thereby, the presence of charges over the dispersive phase particles can be removed by adding electrolytes. At the same time, I can remove the effect of extensive hydration. I can remove effect of extensive solvation. Hydration can also be called solvation. The effect of hydration or effect of solvation can be removed by adding suitable solvent. That is, by adding suitable solvent. suitable solvent, you can remove the effect of hydration or solvation. So for example, in the case of hydrophilic colloids, in the case of hydrophilic colloids, in the case of hydrophilic colloids, dispersion medium is water. In the case of hydrophilic colloids, that is effect of hydration can be removed by adding suitable solvents like acetone or alcohols. In the case of hydrophilic colloids, where dispersion medium is water, the effect of hydration or solvation can be removed by adding suitable solvents like acetone or alcohol. If I add acetone or alcohol to the hydrophilic colloids, these solvents, they are going to remove a sheath of dispersion medium around the dispersive phase particles by dehydration of dispersive phase particles. That means the effect of hydration of colloidal particles in lyophilic colloids can be removed by adding acetone or alcohol. They remove that effect of hydration by dehydration of dispersive phase particles. So under this condition, if you add small amount of electrolyte to the lyophilic colloids, that brings about, yes, it is coagulation of lyophilic colloids. After removing the effect of hydration, coagulation of lyophilic colloids can be brought about by adding small amount of electrolytes. So this is how we know that is coagulation of lyophilic colloids can be brought about. That means coagulation of lyophilic colloids can be brought about by removing the presence of charges over the colloidal particles. That can be done by adding electrolytes. At the same time, coagulation of lyophilic colloids can be brought about by removing effect of extensive hydration. That can be done by adding suitable solvent. In the case of hydrophilic colloids, the effect of hydration or solvation can be removed by adding the solvents like acetone or alcohol. They remove, yes, it is a sheath of dispersion medium around the dispersive phase particles by the process called dehydration. Under this condition, if you add small amount of electrolyte, the coagulation of lyophilic colloids is possible. And of course, as far as lyophobic colloids are concerned, in the case of lyophobic colloids, the stability of lyophobic colloids is due to the presence of charges on the colloidal particles only. Because, in the case of lyophobic colloids, no extensive hydration of colloidal particles, is it not? In the case of lyophobic colloids, there is no extensive hydration of dispersive phase particles. Because of that, just by adding small amount of electrolytes to the lyophobic colloids, one can bring about coagulation of lyophobic colloids. That's why, that is lyophilic colloids cannot be easily coagulated, whereas lyophobic colloids can be easily coagulated. So this is what we call it as the coagulation of lyophilic colloids. Now we'll go to the next discussion, that will be protection of colloids. Protection of colloids. So this is the next discussion as per your NCERT textbook. Yes. Or you can also give a title, protective action of lyophilic colloids. Protective action of lyophilic colloids. This is the next discussion. Protection of colloids means we are going to protect colloids from coagulation. That is protection of colloids. As you know that lyophobic colloids are less stable than lyophilic colloids. Or I can say lyophilic colloids are more stable than lyophobic colloids. The reason is, in the case of lyophilic colloids, there is a strong interaction between dispersive phase and dispersion medium, as a result of which dispersive phase particles are covered by a sheath of dispersion medium, is it not? Because of that strong interaction between dispersive phase and dispersion medium, the dispersive phase particles in lyophilic colloids will be covered by a sheath of dispersion medium. And this particular sheath of dispersion medium around dispersive phase particle is going to protect lyophilic colloids from the action of electrolytes. And that's why lyophilic colloids are highly stable. Therefore, I can make use of these more stable lyophilic colloids in order to protect less stable lyophobic colloids from the coagulation. That is, the less stable lyophobic colloids can be protected from coagulation by adding more stable lyophilic colloids. So that is what we call protective action of lyophilic colloids. If I add a certain amount of lyophilic colloid to the lyophobic colloid, these lyophilic colloids form a layer around the dispersive phase particles of lyophobic colloids. Thereby, lyophobic colloids can be protected from the action of electrolytes, and that prevents coagulation of lyophobic colloids. That is, lyophilic colloids, they protect lyophobic colloids by forming the layer of lyophilic colloids on the surface of lyophobic colloidal particles. Thereby, the lyophobic colloids can be protected by the action of electrolytes, and because of that, lyophilic colloids can protect lyophobic colloids from coagulation. That's why lyophilic colloids are also known as, that is, protective colloids. So protective colloids are lyophilic colloids. Protective colloids are lyophilic colloids which protect lyophobic colloids from coagulation. So that is, the lyophilic colloids used to protect lyophobic colloids from coagulation. So such type of lyophilic colloids are called as, yes, it is protective colloids. And of course, as far as example for the protective action of colloids is concerned, that is, ice cream is an example for lyophilic colloid. Ice cream is an example for lyophilic colloid. That coagulation of ice cream can be prevented. Coagulation of ice cream can be prevented by adding a lyophilic colloid like gelatin. Gelatin is a lyophilic colloid. When gelatin is added to the ice cream, that is, ice cream will be protected from coagulation. Or you can say, you can increase the stability of lyophobic colloids. You can increase the stability of ice cream by adding, yes, it is gelatin. So that is what we call it as protective action of colloids. Protective action of lyophilic colloids. So that's why, that is, as far as protective colloids are concerned, generally lyophilic colloids are used as protective colloids. These lyophilic colloids protect lyophobic colloids from coagulation by forming a layer of lyophilic colloids around the lyophobic colloidal particles. Thereby, lyophobic colloids can be protected from coagulation. So this is what we call it as protective action of, yes, it is lyophilic colloids. Okay, yes, it is lyophilic colloid can be given as an example for, yes, it is protective colloids. Okay, and of course, different lyophilic colloids have different abilities of protecting lyophobic colloids. In order to compare protective action of lyophilic colloids, I can make use of some physical quantities like gold number. This is one physical quantity that I can use in order to compare protective action of lyophilic colloids. Apart from that, I can make use of Congo-Robin number. I can make use of Congo-Robin number in order to compare protective action of lyophilic colloids. So this is what we call it as protective action of colloids, or you can say protection of colloids. Protection of lyophobic colloids from coagulation by adding lyophilic colloids. So this is what we call it as protective action of colloids. Now we'll see one more discussion under colloids. It will be emulsions, right? We'll see that. Yes. Now let us see the next discussion under colloids. It will be emulsions. One of the types of colloidal system, we classified colloids into different types based on the physical state of dispersive phase and dispersion medium. This is one colloidal system in which dispersive phase is a liquid, dispersion medium is also liquid. That is the colloidal system in which both dispersive phase and dispersion medium are liquids. And generally, emulsions can be prepared by mixing two immiscible liquids or by mixing two partially miscible liquids. So for example, oil and water, they are examples for immiscible liquids, because oil will form a separate layer with water. Oil doesn't mix up with water, that. Because of that, oil and water will form two immiscible liquids. When mixture of oil and water is shaken vigorously, that results in the formation of, yes, it is emulsion. And of course, emulsions prepared by oil and water, they are generally unstable because oil doesn't mix up with water. Therefore, in order to form stable emulsion of oil with water, we can make use of certain chemical substances called emulsifiers. We can make use of emulsifiers in order to stabilize the emulsions prepared by mixing oil and water. And of course, as far as the preparation of emulsions are concerned, you can prepare emulsions by mixing two immiscible liquids or partially miscible liquids through vigorous shaking or by using, that is, colloid mill known as homogenizer. As far as emulsions are concerned, generally emulsions are made up of oil and water. These are the constituents of emulsions, and these emulsions prepared by oil and water will be of two types. One, it will be oil dispersed in water. This is one type of emulsion. Yes, it is. This can be represented as O bar W, that is oil in water type. Oil in water type emulsion. This is oil in water type emulsion. Second, it will be water dispersed in oil. This is one more type of emulsion. That is, emulsions prepared by mixing oil and water will be of two types. Oil dispersed in water type emulsion. Another is water dispersed in oil type emulsion. That is W bar O type emulsions. These are the, yes, it is a types of emulsions. These are the two types of emulsions. In the case of oil dispersed in water, water is a dispersion medium, oil is a disperser phase. Or you can say, in the case of oil in water type emulsions, water will be in larger proportions compared to the oil. Oil will be in smaller proportions compared to the water. That is oil in water type emulsions. Whereas in the case of water dispersed in oil type emulsions, water dispersed in oil type emulsions, oil will be in larger proportions, water will be in smaller proportions. That is water in oil type emulsions. That is oil is a dispersion medium, water is a disperser phase. So this is what we call it as two types of emulsions. Example for the oil in water type emulsion, example for the oil in water type emulsions, we have milk is an example for oil in water type emulsion. Generally, milk is a emulsion of liquid fat dispersed in water. Milk is a emulsion of liquid fat dispersed in water. That is milk. Apart from that, I can give this as an example. That is vanishing cream is one more example for the, yes, it is oil in water type emulsion. That is vanishing cream. These are the creams and they disappear when they are applied over the skin. These are the kind of creams which will disappear upon application, upon applying over the skin. Such type of creams are called as vanishing creams. As far as water in oil type emulsions are concerned, water dispersed in oil. Okay, now your examples, it will be butter is an example for, yes, it is water in oil type emulsion, or you can say cod liver oil. Cod liver oil is an example for, yes, it is water in oil type emulsion, yes, or you can say cold cream, or you can say simply cream. Cold cream, or you can say simply cream, is an example for water dispersed in oil. Make out the difference here. Vanishing cream is an example for oil dispersed in water type emulsion. Cold cream or simply cream is an example for water dispersed in oil type. Yes, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಗಮನಿಸಿ, ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ vanishing cream ಅಂತ ನೀವು ಬರೆದ್ರೆ, that's an example for oil dispersed in water, where the amount of oil will be relatively less compared to the amount of water. That's why, when these creams are applied over the skin, they disappear. Here it is creams. In the case of cream, the cold creams, oil is present in larger proportions compared to the water. That's why it is an example for water dispersed in oil. Here it is water dispersed in oil, butter. Okay, na? So this is what we call it as the types of emulsions, or you can say that the types of emulsions, and of course examples for the different types of emulsions. What I said, emulsions prepared by mixing oil and water are unstable because oil does not mix up with water easily. Therefore, in order to stabilize these emulsions, we can make use of certain chemical substances called emulsifiers, or you can say that emulsifying agents. Look at this. As far as emulsifying agents are concerned, what I said, emulsifying agents are going to stabilize emulsions. They stabilize emulsions by forming interfacial film between dispersion medium and dispersive phase particles. Just observe in this diagram, I have oil in water type emulsion, for example, emulsion prepared by mixing oil and water. Yes, look at this. This is a oil droplet. Yes, this is a water. Oil doesn't mix up with water. Oil doesn't mix up with water. Because of that, oil and water do not form stable emulsions. If I add emulsifying agent or emulsifier, look here, this emulsifier, that is yellow colored region, that is emulsifier, that is going to form interfacial film between oil and water. Thereby, yes, it is oil remains suspended in water medium. No doubt, oil doesn't interact with water, but in the presence of emulsifier, it forms interfacial film between dispersion medium and dispersive phase. This emulsifier can easily interact with dispersion medium as well as dispersive phase. This emulsifier can easily interact with dispersion medium as well as dispersive phase. Thereby, dispersive phase particles remain suspended in dispersion medium. If these emulsifiers are removed, then no interaction between oil and water. But in presence of emulsifier, this emulsifier can attract dispersion medium as well as oil dispersive phase particles. This emulsifier can attract dispersion medium molecules as well as dispersive phase particles. Thereby, dispersive phase particles remain suspended in, yes, it is dispersion medium. This is how emulsifier is going to stabilize emulsions. That's why I said emulsifiers, they are going to stabilize emulsions by forming interfacial film between dispersive phase and dispersion medium, and that makes oil droplets to be suspended in dispersion medium like water. So this is how emulsifier can bring about stabilization of, yes, it is emulsions. And as far as emulsifiers are concerned, in the case of oil in water type emulsions, in the case of oil in water type emulsions, oil in water type emulsions can be stabilized by using emulsifiers like proteins, emulsion, that is emulsifiers like proteins, or you can say gum, or you can say natural or synthetic soaps. Natural or synthetic soaps can be used as emulsifiers in the case of oil in water type emulsions. They are the emulsifying agents for oil in water type emulsions. For example, in the case of milk, is it not? Milk is an example for oil in water type emulsion. This particular emulsion is stabilized by the protein called casein. This particular milk oil in water type emulsion is stabilized by the presence of emulsifier like, yes, it is casein. Casein acts as a, yes, it is emulsifying agent in order to stabilize milk. Apart from that, that is water in oil type emulsions. Water in oil type emulsions. Water in oil type emulsions can be stabilized. Water in oil type emulsions can be stabilized by adding, that is heavy metal salts of fatty acids. Heavy metal salts of fatty acids, or you can say long chain alcohols, or you can say Lamp-black. These are the substances which we can use as emulsifying agents in order to stabilize. Yes, it is water in oil type emulsions. Lamp-black, carbon soot, that can be used as a, yes, it is emulsifier in order to stabilize water in oil type emulsions. So this is what we call it as emulsifying agents as far as the stability of emulsions are concerned. Agudala? Yes? Now at this moment, as far as emulsions are concerned, emulsions can be diluted by adding dispersion medium. That is, emulsions can be diluted by adding any amount of dispersion medium. However, when dispersive phase is added, that dispersive phase will form separate layer with dispersion medium. For example, milk is an example for oil in water type emulsion. So water is the dispersion medium. Therefore, milk can be diluted by adding any amount of water. Milk can be diluted by adding any amount of water. This is what we call it as the dilution of emulsions. And apart from that, as far as emulsions are concerned, emulsions contain dispersive phase particles in the form of droplets, in the form of liquid droplets. Oil in water type emulsions only, you will find oil droplets as colloidal particles. Water in oil type emulsions only, water droplets will be the dispersive phase particles. So totally, emulsions contain colloidal particles, dispersive phase particles in the form of droplets, and these droplets of emulsions are negatively charged. These droplets of emulsions are, yes, it is negatively charged. Because of that, emulsions can be coagulated by adding electrolytes. Electrolytes are going to neutralize charges over the dispersive phase particles, thereby neutralization can be brought about. Now the coagulation of emulsions can be brought about by adding electrolytes. At the same time, these emulsions will exhibit the properties of colloids like Brownian moment and also Tyndall effect. These properties will also be found in the case of emulsions. And of course, as far as emulsions are concerned, that is, the process of breaking of emulsions into their constituent liquids is called de-emulsification. That is, de-emulsification refers to the process of breaking of emulsions into their constituent liquids. That means through de-emulsification, you can bring about separation of the constituents of emulsions. That is, process of breaking of emulsions into the constituent liquids is called de-emulsification. De-emulsification of emulsions can be brought about by heating. De-emulsification of emulsions can be brought about by heating or by freezing or by centrifugation process in centrifugation process we make use of centrifugal force in order to bring about separation of components of a mixture. So this is what we call it as, yes, it is emulsions. This is the something about emulsions. So these are the discussions that we have as far as emulsions are concerned. Now at this moment, we'll go to the next topic. It will be colloids around us and of course applications of colloids. We'll see that. Yes. Now let us see. Next discussion under colloids, it will be colloids around us. As you know that, we come across colloidal solutions, in our day-to-day life. So for example, you take whatever the food we are eating, that is colloidal in nature. Whatever the furnitures that we are using, the wood furnitures that we are using, they are colloidal in nature. Whatever the, yes, it is newspapers, the newspapers that we are reading, there's also made up of colloidal substances. Apart from that, the houses that we live, they're also made up of colloidal substances. That means we come across these colloidal systems, in our day-to-day life. We depend on these colloidal systems to the maximum extent. In one or the other way, we make use of colloidal systems for many purposes in our day-to-day life. Now I'm going to give some examples. That is, examples for the colloidal systems around us in our day-to-day life. So for example, first it will be, look at this, the blue color of sky. Blue color of sky is due to the, yes, it is the scattering of light by the smoke and dust particles present in air. You know that the smoke and dust particles present in air are colloidal in nature. These smoke and dust particles, they are going to scatter blue light, and thereby sky appears as blue colored. So that is what we call it as the one example there. Second example, so as far as we'll go for it, that is the mist around us, the fog around us, and of course rain. It's all because of, yes, it is the colloidal water droplets present in atmosphere. The fog, mist and rain, that's all because of colloidal water droplets present in atmosphere. You know that in extremely cold weather, the water droplets present in the atmosphere, they are going to condense on the surfaces of, yes, it is dust particles and smoke particles present in air. That results in the formation of colloidal water droplets. These water droplets are colloidal in nature. Because of that, they remain suspended and they continue to flow in air in the form of mist and fog. And that is one more important aspect around us. Apart from that, as far as rain is concerned, rain is because of clouds, is it not? Rain is because of clouds. As far as clouds are concerned, they are aerosols of water droplets present in the air. Clouds are aerosols of fine water droplets present in the air. And of course, at extremely low temperature, these water droplets suspended in the air, they undergo condensation to form bigger water droplets. These water droplets grow bigger and bigger till they come down in the form of, yes, it is rain. So this is how the rainfall takes place. At the same time, rainfall is also due to the, yes, it is mutual coagulation of oppositely charged clouds. That clouds are nothing but colloidal systems, and the water droplets present in the clouds will be characterized by charges. When two oppositely charged clouds meet one another, what happens? Mutual coagulation takes place that results in heavy rainfall. That results in coagulation of water droplets in the form of heavy rain. So that's why the heavy rainfall within a short period of time is due to the mutual coagulation of oppositely charged clouds. So this is what we call it as the formation of rain, of course. Okay, now apart from that, we can bring about, yes, it is artificial rain. That is the principle behind the artificial rain is also due to the, yes, it is the colloidal nature of, yes, it is clouds. One can bring about artificial rain by spraying electrified sand or by spraying a soil having a charge opposite to the charge of the clouds by using aeroplanes. When oppositely charged soils are sprayed over the clouds, what happens? The charges over the water droplets of clouds will be neutralized. Thereby, coagulation of water droplets in the cloud takes place. That results in rainfall. So this is how artificial rain can be brought about. At the same time, when electrified sand is sprayed over the clouds, sand is of course providing a surface for the condensation of water droplets over the sand particles. That results in, yes, it is the rainfall there. So this is what we call it as artificial rain. Apart from that, as far as colloids around us are concerned, whatever the food articles that we are using, they are colloidal in nature. That means, you take fruit juices, fruit jams, butter, milk, cheese, ice cream. These are the food articles that we are using in our day-to-day life. They are all colloidal in nature. That colloidal particles are generally characterized by larger surface area. Because of that, these colloidal food articles can be easily assimilated in our body. So this is what we call it as one more important aspect as far as colloids around us is concerned. Apart from that, the soil around us is also colloidal in nature, especially fertile soil. Fertile soil is very useful for the growth of the plants, is it not? A fertile soil is colloidal in nature and in presence of humus as protective colloid. Due to the colloidal nature of soil, this soil can absorb moisture and other nutrients easily. Thereby, that will be very useful for the growth of the plants. This soil, this is colloidal in nature. That is, the soil is a colloidal in nature. And of course, in presence of humus as a protective colloid. Due to the colloidal nature of soil, a soil can absorb, yes, it is moisture and the various nourishing materials which will be useful for the growth of the plants. So this is what we call it as one more important aspect around us as far as the colloids are concerned. And of course, as far as sixth point is concerned, As far as 6 point is concerned, even the blood in our body is also a colloidal solution. The blood in our body is also a colloidal solution. It's a colloidal solution of albuminoid substances. It's a colloidal solution of albuminoid substances. That is, albuminoid substances, they are kind of proteins. So the potash alum and ferric chloride. Potash alum and ferric chloride can be used as styptic agents. That is, that styptic agents are the chemical substances which will increase speed of, that is, blood clotting. The speed of blood clotting can be increased. The speed of blood clotting can be increased in presence of styptic agents. We can make use of this potash alum, or you can say ferric chloride as styptic agents. Okay. So why I am talking about these styptic agents? Blood is a colloidal solution. When fresh cuts occur on the body of the human beings, bleeding takes place, is it not? And that bleeding can be stopped by applying, as it is, the styptic agents like potash alum, or as it is, ferric chloride. When potash alum or ferric chloride are applied over the cuts, what happens? The coagulation of colloidal blood takes place. Coagulation of blood takes place, and that naturally increases, that is, blood clotting. That blood clotting is nothing but coagulation of blood. In addition to these colloidal systems, we have one important process that we observe in the region where river water meets sea water, and that is the formation of delta region. Formation of delta region is also because of, the colloidal properties of, the formation of delta region. That is, the formation of delta region can also be explained on the basis of colloidal properties. That as far as river water is concerned, river water is generally a colloidal solution of various clay and mud particles, especially during rainy season. The river water is characterized by various mud particles and clay particles in it. That's why in rainy seasons, that is, the rainwater, river water will be a colloidal solution of various mud and clay particles. Just imagine a region where river water meets sea water. Sea water is a solution of electrolytes. Sea water is characterized by various dissolved electrolytes. When river water meets sea water, what happens? The electrolytes present in sea water bring about coagulation of colloidal mud particles present in river water. When river water meets sea water, the electrolytes present in sea water bring about coagulation of mud and clay particles present in river water. Thereby, a huge quantity of mud and clay will be spread over the region where river water meets sea water. That results in delta region formation. That particular region where river water meets sea water will be characterized by a huge deposition of mud particles, huge deposition of clay and mud, and that is due to the coagulation of, that is, colloidal mud particles present in river water by the electrolytes present in sea water. So this is what we call it as the formation of delta region. Now at this moment, now let us take up the last discussion of the chapter, that is what we call it as the applications of colloids. Okay, now we'll see that applications of colloids, right? That is the last discussion of the chapter. Yes, we'll see that. Yes. Now let us see the last discussion of the chapter, that is applications of colloids. Under that, we'll see first of all it is electrical precipitation of smoke. Just imagine the gases from the various industrial plants. The waste gases from the industries, they are characterized by colloidal impurities like smoke particles, dust particles, and arsenic compounds. These are the colloidal impurities associated with industrial waste gases. And these industrial waste gases cannot be directly released into the atmosphere because the presence of these colloidal impurities will cause various health hazards to the living things on the atmosphere. And because of that, these industrial gases are to be purified before they are released to the atmosphere. For that purpose, we make use of, certain devices called Cottrell's precipitator. Okay, Cottrell's precipitator is the one device that I can make use of in order to remove the colloidal impurities present in industrial waste gases. You know, the colloidal impurities are generally characterized by charges over their surfaces. That you keep it in mind. Okay, now that is the industrial waste gases are allowed to enter into the, yes, this is a Cottrell precipitator, a kind of chamber in which electrodes are suspended. You know, these electrodes are characterized by, yes, it is charges opposite to the charge possessed by the colloidal impurities present in waste gases. And these electrodes, you know, they are connected to the high voltage electric field around 30,000 volts. Just imagine, very high voltage of 30,000 volts will be applied across the electrodes used in Cottrell precipitator. When industrial waste gases, you know, if they are entered, they are allowed to pass through this Cottrell precipitator. When industrial waste gases are allowed to pass through the Cottrell precipitator, what happens, you know, the charges over the colloidal impurities present in the industrial waste gases will be neutralized in presence of, yes, it is when they are passed through the various electrodes suspended in the Cottrell precipitator. When charges over the colloidal impurities are neutralized, what happens, you know, the coagulation of dust particles, smoke particles and impurities takes place. Thereby, these particular dust particles will be, yes, it is precipitated in the form of ash over the floor of Cottrell precipitator. That is due to the neutralization of charges over the colloidal impurities in presence of electrodes, and thereby the gases free from all these impurities will be going out from this particular Cottrell precipitator into the chimneys through which the gases will be released into the atmosphere. And so this is how, yes, it is, that is, electrical precipitation of smoke will be brought about by making use of Cottrell precipitator, a device which we can use in order to bring about the removal of, yes, it is, various colloidal impurities present in industrial waste gases. That is one important application. As far as second important application is concerned, you know, we make use of various medicines in order to bring about treatment of various diseases. In order to treat various diseases, you know, we make use of various medicines. These medicines are colloidal in nature. And because of that, you know, colloidal particles are generally characterized by larger surface area, and due to the presence of larger surface area, the medicines in the form of colloidal solutions can be easily assimilated by our body. And at the same time, you know, as far as examples for the medicines are concerned, we have one medicine, that is what we call it as Argirol. Yes, that is Argirol is it is a colloidal silver. Argirol is a colloidal silver used as a eye lotion. This is one example for the medicine which is a colloidal in nature. Or you can say colloidal antimony. Is a one more medicine used in the treatment of disease called, yes, it is Kala Azar. So this is a disease that can be cured by making use of colloidal antimony. Colloidal gold is used for intramuscular injection. Apart from that, you know, that is milk of magnesia. It's a magnesium hydroxide solution which is colloidal in nature. It is used in the treatment of, yes, it is acidity in the stomach. That is, the milk of magnesia, that is a solution of magnesium hydroxide, is used as antacid in the treatment of hyperacidity of stomach. So that is what we call it as the colloids can be medicines that we are using. They are colloidal in nature. Apart from that, you know, that is one more application as far as colloids are concerned. It will be in tanning industries. That is in tanning industries. You know that you might have heard about leather tanning. Leather tanning is a process of converting animal skin into useful leather. Tanning or leather tanning is a process of converting animal skin into useful leather. That means we make use of animal hides in order to manufacture useful leather. Animal hide is, yes, it is colloidal in nature. It will be characterized by positively charged colloidal particles. Animal hides contain positively charged colloidal particles. When these animal hides are soaked in a solution known as tannin, that is, in order to bring about tanning of leather, you know, we are going to soak the animal hides into tannin solution. Tannin is, yes, it is, it's a derivative of, yes, it is Tannin is nothing but derivatives of, yes, it is polyhydroxy benzoic acid. Polyhydroxy benzoic acid. This is the composition of tannin. This tannin is characterized by negatively charged particles. Tannin will be characterized by negatively charged particles. Just imagine an animal hide containing positively charged colloidal particles. When it is soaked in tannin containing negatively charged particles, what happens now? Coagulation of colloidal particles takes place. The coagulation of animal hide takes place. That results in formation of hard leather. That is, when animal hide is soaked in, animal hide containing positively charged colloidal particles is soaked in a tannin containing negatively charged particles, coagulation takes place. That results in conversion of animal hide into, yes, it is hard leather, and that process is called as tanning. Sometimes, we can make use of chromium salts. Sometimes, you can make use of chromium salts in the place of tannin. In the place of tannin, you can make use of chromium salts in order to bring about leather tanning. Yes, so this is what we call it as one more industrial application as far as the applications of colloids are concerned. Apart from that, you might have heard about, yes, it is, that is rubber industries, In rubber industries also, we can make use of the properties of colloids in order to separate rubber from latex. Latex from the rubber trees, Latex is a colloidal solution of rubber from rubber trees. When this latex is treated with suitable electrolyte, coagulation of rubber from the latex takes place. So that's why, the separation of rubber from latex in rubber industries is due to the coagulation of rubber from latex in presence of suitable electrolytes. Okay, now, so that is also, yes, it is one more application of colloids there. Apart from that, that is the industrial products. Various industrial products that we are using, they are also in colloidal in nature. That is, for example, ink that we are using is colloidal in nature. Now the paints that we are using is a colloidal in nature. Cement that we are using is colloidal in nature. Graphite lubricants that we are using, that is colloidal in nature. Like that, various industrial substances, various industrial products that we are using, they are colloidal in nature. That is another application as far as the colloids are concerned. Yes. Apart from that, I can make use of the properties of colloids in the purification of water. I can make use of the properties of colloids in purification of water. Just imagine water from the natural sources will be generally associated with various mud particles, thereby, and that the water from the natural sources will not be fit for drinking purpose, because that water from the natural sources will be associated with colloidal mud particles and dust particles. And because of that, when that impure water containing colloidal mud particles, when it is stirred with, yes, it is potash alum, what happens, a coagulation of colloidal mud particles takes place, thereby all the mud particles present in the, that is water, will be settled down, and of course you left with clean water at the upper region of the water there. How the potash alum provides, yes, it is Al3 plus ions and K plus ions. These ions, they are going to neutralize the negative charges over the colloidal mud particles in water. That results in coagulation of mud particles, thereby water will be free from colloidal mud particles. That is, in purification of water also, we make use of the properties of colloids. Now at this moment, we'll go to the one more application of this colloids. It will be, yes, the cleansing action of soap. The cleansing action of soap is due to the, yes, it is a property of colloid once again. We make use of the properties of colloids to bring about, yes, it is in order to remove the dirt on the clothes. That is, the cleansing action of soaps is due to the formation of micelles. When soap is applied over the, yes, it is clothes containing dirt, what happens, soap is going to form micelles with the grease containing dust particles. That's why I said that is cleansing action of soap is due to the formation of micelles by soap molecules with oil containing dirt. So that is, the cleansing action of soap is also because of the colloidal property. Apart from that, we have one more application, that is in the preparation of photographic plates. That is, photographic plates can be prepared by applying emulsion of silver bromide in gelatin. Photographic plates can be prepared by applying emulsion of silver bromide in gelatin over the celluloid films, or you can say glass plates. By applying emulsion of silver bromide in gelatin over the celluloid films or glass plates. This silver bromide is, photosensitive chemical substance. That's why this photosensitive or light sensitive silver bromide emulsion prepared by using gelatin is applied over the celluloid films or glass plates, and that's why I can make use of emulsion of silver bromide in gelatin in order to prepare photosensitive photographic plates. Okay, now so this is one more application of SET's colloids there. Agudala, yes, and that's all about SET's applications of colloids, and that completes the discussion surface chemistry. Agudala, thank you very much. Okay, we'll see.